So, okay, now I'll get into what I've heard and why. Like, I was bringing up Tens because I feel like it would be the first domino to fall, and Tens' decision of whether he wants to stay or leave, I think, can affect everything else. So, from what I've heard and from what has been tweeted by Noin, a Brazilian Twitter personality, community personality in the Brazilian Valorant scene, he is saying that it is very likely that Aspas leaves LOUD after Champions. So I've done some digging.
That is spicy.
From other sources, and from what I've learned is that Les, who previously had issues with Sasi, and Les and Sasi's issues were, part of the reason that, along with the money that Sentinels threw him, which is why Sasi and Pancata ended up leaving LOUD to begin with, is that Les and Aspas have been having a ton of issues going all the way back to Tokyo, and is part of why they had such a disappointing performance in Tokyo. And that not just Les, but the entire LOUD team has had issues with Aspas and his personal relationship in his real life, and how that is affecting the team's performance. They do not think, from what I've been told, that he had been exactly committed to the best performance of the team, and he has had too much outside influence and allowing this outside influence to affect his practice regimen and to affect his commitment to what is best at the team. And when I've been told, that has affected their Tokyo performance very heavily. In addition to this, I've been told that the 4 players went back to Brazil a couple weeks ago after the season was over, and had been practicing with another player,
Havoc,
named Havoc, who was also spoken about with Noin, and they had been scrimming as 5, and Aspas stayed in Los Angeles and did not travel back with the team. Stayed with his girlfriend in Los Angeles and did not travel back with the team, and they had been scrimming with a Union sub named Havoc, another young kid, which has been very highly hyped within Brazil. Seems like Brazil just has an endless amount of 15, 16, 17-year-old crack kids that are just going to be continuing to go become the best players in the region. Yeah, they're just printing them forever. And that I've been told the situation within the team is so bad that they could play even worse at Champions that they did in Tokyo, and many to believe that the team might be fractured completely, and that the chances of Aspas leaving are 90% or higher after this season is over. In addition to this, Aspas is very good friends with Sasi. And apparently very good friends with Pancata. So there's already been speculation within the Brazilian scene of a couple different scenarios, which definitely now ties back into the Sentinels issue. So from what it seems to believe, LOUD is having problems. And that you should not, if we can see what the betting lines are going to be going into Champions, do not bet on LOUD to win Champions at this moment. It seems like things are not going well internally over there. So if you see that Aspas could leave LOUD at the end of the year, the likelihood of him joining up with Sasi and Pancata seems to be really high. So there would be a couple different options now. Aspas joining Sentinels probably only hinges if Tens leaves. Right? Because if we think that Zekin is going to stay, given the Asian pool of Aspas, which is almost identical to Tens, especially being like the Jet, right? Historically. You would think that option of joining Sentinels hinges on whether Tens is going to re-sign or not.
I refuse to believe. I refuse to believe that he's going to join Sentinels. I
Okay,
refuse to
but
believe it.
look, considering what you would have if you're Aspas, you
Yeah.
definitely would want to team up with Sasi and Pancata
Yeah.
than the other options. Like, yeah, the players on Furia are good. I'm sure Furia and MIBR are both going to be making changes. But Sasi and Pancata are his ex-teammates. They're really good friends. They won a world championship. You would want to be together with those two. So if those two, who are still under contract for 2 more years on Sentinels, would want to team up with Aspas, that would rely currently on Aspas joining Sentinels.
I see. I see what you're saying. It's such a stretch, dude. It's such a stretch. I don't know. It's like, what's the point of playing on an English speaking team if they're going to just bring in like another Portuguese like player? Like, and then you run into the problem of like, well, why would Sentinels want like an all Brazilian team? But maybe
Yeah, like
I do know the Brazilian market's insane. Like I know, like I've seen like those tournaments over there. Like Brazil is popping off when it comes to gaming and esports. Like it is really, that's why they're just printing so many good kids. Like it's really big. Like gaming is huge in Brazil right now, especially FPS games.
I mean, like, and if you go down that scenario, Marv is a free agent, so they could go 4 Brazilian players and Zekin. But then are you going to make 4 Brazilian players speak English and com in English because Zekin is on the team? I mean,
No, it can't happen.
maybe, possible.
There's no way. There's just no way.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it. So if you get those 3, maybe you re-sign Marved and you have 2 NA, 3 Brazil. I think that is a more likely scenario. But if Aspas wanted to join, I could also see maybe 5 Brazil. Now, that makes sense in terms of like a team building for those players. But Sentinels as an organization, I really don't feel like they want to leave the North American market. They built such a huge fan base with North America through the first iteration of the roster, and now with the new roster, it really does not seem like they would want to go a 5 Brazilian team.
Yeah. I don't think that's something. I don't think that's the play for Sentinels as an org. Like, I think like Aspas, if everything you said is true, first of all, it's so hard for me to like even wrap my head around it because I'm like rifling through the stats as you're talking, and it's just like, he's just the #1 performer in VCT Americas. Like when you combine playoffs, he's still the #1 performer. If you only look at playoffs, he's like still in the top 5. And even at Tokyo where they like bombed out, like his stats weren't awful. Like he still had a 1.04 rating. Like
they won the season. It's
like,
not like they were #1 seed of the season.
I just feel like it's easier to like work through these problems, but
apparently it is very at the moment it is extremely fractured so much that the team is practicing with another player, even though they're going to have to play together at Champions. That seems like you're talking earlier about the Cloud9 situation. This is way more insane.
Yeah, this is insane.
Way more insane to me.
And I'm not going to say like anything about the details, but I've received multiple people message me and they express confidence in their team in LCQ because of how scrims have gone against LOUD. Everyone is beating them. Like, but everyone's like, obviously when you beat LOUD, you're like, holy fuck, we just beat the shit out of LOUD. Like, but if everyone's beating the shit out of LOUD, you don't know that, right? Like, and that's kind of like what you're telling me right now is like, that, like knowing everything you just said and like everything that I've heard whispers about now, I'm like piecing it all together, and I'm like such a LOUD fanboy. Like, oh, this doesn't feel good. I don't really know what to even think right now, honestly. Like, I can't even believe what you're telling me, but it seems like it all makes sense based on all the other things that I know. And like what we saw in Tokyo, they looked very disjointed. I was surprised. Like, honestly, like if there was anyone disappointed in this world with like LOUD in Tokyo, like I was that person. Like fucking hell, I was livid. I had them winning the tournament. Like, and I just feel like they let me down. Like they literally, that's what it felt like. It was like, this is not the team that I love. Like what is this shit? But it kind of makes sense based on what you said. I just can't believe it. Like I can't believe that like the best player in VCT Americas is like the player that they're thinking about replacing. And what? Like what? You're blowing my mind right now. Like honestly, like I don't even know how to respond.
Loud's internal issues, I definitely think we're going to see very soon at Champions, how that does. But I really feel like him teaming up with Sassy and Pancata, at least on Sentinels, is going to rely on whether TenZ re-signs
There's no
the
way
team or not. And that decision, both by TenZ, if he wants to explore free agency, maybe go to something like 100 Thieves, maybe wants to go back to Cloud. I think go back to Cloud9 would be kind of insane given the history between him and Jack. Maybe he wants to retire and do streaming, considering everything that's going on. I think all of those are options on the table for TenZ. So if TenZ does not re-sign, I think the likelihood of Aspas maybe even going to Sentinels goes way up. The other option here is that although Pancata and Sassy are currently contracted to Sentinels, I'm sure they're frustrated too. They just went from world champions to out of the season now. They have nothing to do for the next 4 or 5 months. They're probably not happy. All right.
Oh, dude, Rod, you know the Brazilian culture when it comes to this shit. Like, they are fierce competitors. And like, if they came here, it's not like they only did it for money. I promise you, those guys expected to win.
Yeah, they came to win. I'm sure the money helped, but they came to win
for sure.
Championship.
And like, they cannot be happy right now.
So I could see a Damian Lillard situation. I know you probably have no idea what
I'm talking about.
I tried to explain to you before the show. He's a star player in the Portland Trailblazers in the NBA who's trying to force his way out of Portland after years of mediocrity in that organization to go to a championship level contender in the Miami Heat. Although Sassy and Pancata are contracted to Sentinels, I could see them being like, we want out. We want out. It was a great experiment. We love coming to a North American team. We think Sentinels is a great organization, but we lost in a spectacular fashion where we want to get back to where we were before. We want to team up with Aspas, who does not want to be and seems to be distancing himself for LOUD, and we want to go be together. And although I have no insight into what either Furia or MIBR are going to do, you've got to be like, if you're MIBR or Furia, if you have the option of being able to put together Sassy, Pancata, and Aspas in a team, you're taking it out. You are taking that, and you are kicking out everybody else and figuring out who the other two pieces are after. So I really feel like that is a possibility as well. As much as TenZ leaving or retiring or doing something else, I think if TenZ re-signs, that the likelihood of those two asking out actually goes up. If everything that happens with Aspas is true.
Dude, if what you say about Aspas is like true, and honestly, like it does make a little bit of sense based on like the other things I've heard. I think, like I don't really know much about this whole Damian Lillard thing. You're right. Like I have no fucking idea what you're talking about. But I do feel like that whole thing that you described where they kind of just asked like, look, like we came over here, we're used to speaking Portuguese. Like this doesn't feel super comfortable for us. Like can we request that these contracts be ended early? And honestly, like I don't know if Sentinels really objects to that because it's not like they're happy with the results either.
I'm sure there's a buyout. I'm sure there's a very big buyout for both of them.
Yeah. Sure. And like, would it shock me now based on like all of this new info? So hypothetically, if LOUD do kind of bomb out of Champions, if they bomb out of Champions, I feel like everything you're saying is going to happen where they're going to go to like MIBR and just like build a team like with those three.
I think
Why would they
Furia
not?
maybe sounds more like Furia probably has more money given the current situation of the
Yeah.
parent company of MIBR. But I feel like either is definitely possible.
I just think Furia has some really good pieces that kind of
They do.
clash. That's the weird part about Furia. So like I know what you mean. Like Furia does have money and like they could pull this shit off for sure. But I look at Furia's pieces and like, man, like this is such a young, insane team. With MW0, I think
You
MW0
keep
could
him to
like
be Zara. You
so
keep
you
him.
you
That's
would
the one you
definitely keep
keep.
him. You would
Uh-huh.
definitely keep him. He would work. He would fit into this whole project that we're creating here. Then you have Khalil. That guy is unreal mechanically, but he plays controller. And then you end up in that same weird scenario. Now,
Absolutely.
I will say, I think like Khalil is one of those players that could make the switch to Sentinel. Just based on his mechanics and how he plays. That guy's literally like a human turret. Like anyone that comes on his screen, he just kills. So I think he could play Sentinel and like be an anchor. And then that would allow like Pancata to go back to smokes. But DG is like my favorite player to watch, like one of my favorite players to watch. Like, dude, the Brazilian duelists are just OP. Like watching them is incredible. And DG and Aspas are like hand in hand my favorite player. Like I love watching them. And he would not have a place on this team. And I don't know. Like, how could you possibly get rid of DG? That guy's so good.
Because you're getting Aspas, Sasi, and Pancata,
Yeah, it's like just the
Sean.
cost of doing business kind of thing.
Yes. Yes. I think that's the way if you're Furia that you justify it. You pull the trigger because you're getting world champions right now. You're getting better players right now. No disrespect to the current players. It's just the option on the table. Like
Yeah.
because of the fallout from Loud, if all of this, especially, and you're right, if they make a miraculous like run at champions, I think maybe the tide can be mended and the relationship can be mended from what's happening. But especially if they bomb out and like do not make it past like let's say the quarterfinals, I think the likelihood is like 99.999%. It's already
It's
happened.
high. It's definitely high, but maybe not that. Maybe not like 99%, but it's super high. Just knowing how human emotions work. I mean, you got to remember the last time like Sasi and Pancata played with Aspas, they won champions. Like they don't have a bad memory as far as playing goes in their mind, right? Like they might have bad like emotional memories behind the scenes, but that shit washes away. Like I promise you, as a player, like you forget about that real quick. You just remember what it felt like to win and like how good it felt when you did win and like how accomplished you felt and fulfilled you felt at that moment. But then like like obviously there was some like inner turmoil within Loud, which is why those two left eventually. And yeah, like Aspas doesn't seem like the type of player. Honestly, like he doesn't seem the type of player that would like anything would bother him. Like, which is probably why he's just like, oh, Sasi Mankata, fuck yeah, let me play with those guys. Like, I won a championship with those guys. Like, that guy seems so chill. Like, he seems so chill. That's why it's so hard for me to believe that, like, anyone could be upset at him. Like,
Well, I mean, look, part of the reason that Pancata and Sasi left was because of the issues between Les and Sasi. So I gotta say, if this ends up happening, there is a common denominator here of although Les and the other players on the team might have issue currently with Aspas and his personal relationship affecting the team, if Les continues to be the one who has the problems with the other members, maybe that is where Loud should focus on instead of Aspas and trying to fix the roster.
it's a very, very difficult thing. I don't know, man. Like, even because Les was, I want to say, he was the number one performer in playoffs for America's.
He's
Like,
playing well.
he's
stepping up. He's definitely the leader.
yeah, like Les is no joke. Like he is a lockdown player and he makes some serious plays from a supportive role for that team. This is not an easy dilemma here for Loud. Like this is so weird. Yeah, Les is the number one player by a long shot in VCT America playoffs. Like his rating was 1.31 and King's is 1.18. And then below that, Cowanzine is 1.13. Like, I mean, like that's a huge gap for like a Killjoy Viper to be way ahead like that. Like, this guy puts up serious fucking numbers. He's really, really good.
He's able to talk the shit, right?
Yes.
He's not like the lowest performing one. He's
No.
like IGL. Like, he's putting up the numbers on an
Yes.
agent that he should not be putting up numbers on. He can bring that shit to the other members of the team, be like, I want you to step up. You need to, or there's going to be problems.
I don't know, man. Like, I still can't believe this whole fucking thing. This is insane.
This is how I tied it all together. This is how 100 Thieves, Sentinels, and LOUD are all potentially tied together as we go into the, the offseason.
Yeah. It's just like a mixture of, like, honestly, man, like, there's gonna be so many roster changes. Like, there's gonna be so many. Like, all of the teams are gonna do this kind of shit. But I see how these three teams are, like, kind of like the focal talking points right now. For some reason, man, maybe I'm just like a LOUD fanboy, I still think they can make a run at champions.
Despite all of this.
Everything. Bro, it's like the Counter-Strike syndrome. Like, the dead team just wins. Like, they just have nothing to play for. They just know it's over. Fuck it. Let's all just hit headshots. And then they end up playing together for like 2 more years. Watch. It'll happen.
If they go through all of this and ended up beating Fnatic in the final, like, yeah, they're probably gonna be like, oh, it's all good.
Yeah.
Don't worry, because Fnatic, of course, are going to be going in as the heavy favorite to win it all. Heavy favorite. So, if they make it that far, even to the final against the Fnatic, I think that is possible. This could all be mended, for sure.
For sure. Winning solves everything in esports. Don't forget it.